Grief. Love that has nowhere left to go. Before we go ahead and go deeper in this episode about grief in the Rebel Mystic podcast, have you ever wondered if those we lost are trying to reach us even now? Stay with me. I'll share a true story that changed everything I thought I knew. Grief is one of the most emotionally painful experiences we have. Especially now when people are coming together and celebrating the holidays, the absence of someone that you love can feel even heavier. Have you felt that too? When you close your eyes and you think of them, do you ever get this sense that they're still around you somehow in some way? And if you have, you're not alone. And what I'm about to share with you might shift how you view things. I have experienced physical pain in my life. I think we all have. But that pain to me was nothing compared to the emotional pain of losing someone that you love. It's uncomfortable, it lingers, it feels like it's going to last forever, that this is never going to end. And the truth is grief is not a weakness, but it's more so a proof of your love and how much you loved someone. Many people say that grief is the final act of love, that echo that remains when presence is gone. And there is no rush on how long it takes you to move forward and heal. So give yourself permission to cry, to mourn in your own way. And in spiritual communities, we typically say that tears are a release. When you cry, the tears are healing. So let them flow without shame because they are sacred. So many of us are carrying that grief around quietly, especially around the holidays. And if you're feeling this way, let me know in the comments who you're thinking of because your story also matters here. Before we dive deeper, I want to share with you why this matters to me so much, and maybe you too. My name is Isabel, and today we are going to be discussing grief, but more in the metaphysical, spiritual perspective. I'm an evidential medium, which means I connect with loved ones who have passed, bringing through specific information that can be validated, not just general messages. And for the past 5 years, I've dedicated my life to studying mediumship and consciousness, the ideas that while the physical life ends, consciousness and memory still survives it. And what I'm about to share with you, this isn't a clinical thing. I'm not a grief counselor. This is personal and it's a very real experience for me. So let me ask, have you ever experienced something you couldn't explain? Maybe a sudden memory, a meaningful coincidence, or a dream that felt like a visit. What if those moments were actually messages? My journey begins with grief. And what happened 5 years ago was so unexpected, it sent me down a path that I never planned to walk. And I'll let you know the moment it all changed in just a second. So let me take you back to 2020. The new year just passed, and I was hyping myself up, saying that this is going to be my year. I'm going to crush it in my business. At the time, I had a children's clothing boutique, and my daughter was turning 1. I was getting married in about 4 months, and I was picking out songs for the father-daughter dance. I was so excited. I was so hopeful and optimistic. And then January 14th, 2020, one of the many moments that turned this year into one of the worst years of my life thus far. And my grandfather, who was very much a father figure to me, passed away suddenly, completely unexpected. Now, within that time, a lot of things, it just seemed like my life was on fast forward. So much was going on because everything was shutting down. Global pandemic. COVID at the time was very terrifying and unknown. We just knew that, so many people were susceptible of it. So many people were dying. I had a 1-year-old. I was also trying to survive my ex's alcoholism as he was hitting rock bottom. I didn't really grieve. I felt like I had to hold everything together. But there was a void, this deep belief within me that my grandfather was simply just gone. And that's a pain that you might know too. That all I had left were memories. So time went on, and about 6 months after that, out of curiosity and hope, I booked a mediumship reading because maybe, Just maybe there was more. And what came through wasn't vague, it wasn't generic, it was very specific memories. It was my grandfather's quirky personality traits and weird experience that I had the week previously that I kept to myself. I didn't tell anybody. And these are moments that literally nobody could guess. It was like a 0.0000001% chance that you could have guessed all that information and like got that right. It was insane. And it was very unexpected. It made me question a lot of what we were told to be true. And my biggest realization was this. What if consciousness continues on even if the body's gone? If energy can't be destroyed, could part of us remain beyond what we can see or even measure? That there is more and that we still have an energetic body after physical death. And that experience right there completely changed the direction of my entire life. Now, you might be wondering, what actually happens after we die? And how do mediums really know what they claim to know? Let's get into what I learned from years of direct experience. I got my first taste of mediumship when I was in a workshop. This was like at the end of December 2020. It was called Clairvoyance and Mediumship. And I was with this tutor from Arthur Findlay College. And he walked us through this meditative process for connecting with spirit. And our first goal in this workshop was to connect with the tutor and connect with one of his loved ones. And I did what he told me, and I got this flash of a holly bush in my mind. And the way that this came across was a very vivid, like daydream. When it was my turn to share what I received, I nervously said, well, I saw a holly bush. And like this brief moment of panic just wiped over me, thinking, I'm like, well, that didn't make any sense. And, why did I say that? Totally overthinking what I just said. And he just said to me, he was like, well, what else did you get out of curiosity? And I told him, it, I didn't get anything else. It was just a holly bush. And he said, well, actually, my dad passed away in front of a bar. There was a car accident. He passed away in front of a bar over in the UK called the Holly Bush. So I was like, whoa, like actually shocked that I received that. I never been to the UK. I don't know anything over in England. So to me, that was a very pivotal moment in my mediumship. So years after study and practice and moments that completely shook my worldview, here is what I know. Your loved ones who have passed on are still very much with you, and they're actually probably with you more now than they could have been in the physical. They don't need a body to let you know that they love you. They don't need a voice to communicate with you because they reach out through signs, symbols, synchronicities, memories, and those subtle nudges that you feel when you suddenly think of them. Do you ever wonder when someone pops into your mind for no reason, is it really random? Or is it possible that they're reaching out? And that's consciousness speaking in the only way it can now. And you don't need to be a medium to tell your loved one that you love them. They hear you, they see you, and there has been many times during mediumship readings when spirit shares an experience about your life that has occurred since they passed, that they've seen. And people often say to me, they're like, well, why don't I get dream visitations of them? Like, I ask them to, like, I'm like, give me a sign, come through my dreams, and I don't get a dream. Or why don't I see the signs that they might be giving me? Like, they think that they're just abandoned almost, and like, they're not getting signs from their loved one. It makes them question a lot. And the truth is that most of us are very overwhelmed. We're distracted. We're stuck in our own heads. And if you haven't noticed a sign, it's not because they aren't reaching out. Sometimes it's because life is just too loud that we forget how to listen. Spirit is very subtle. Presence is required. And right now, I want to share with you one of the most undeniable signs that I received from my grandfather, and one that made me believe beyond a doubt. Now, 2 years after my grandfather passed away, this was on his birthday, and I said out loud in the morning, I was in my kitchen, and I said, if you can, I'd really love a sign today. And I just let it go. I just said what I said. I let it go. I went on throughout my day. And later on, I was outside. I was letting my dog in when I heard a bird screeching very loudly. And This was not a chirp, this was a literal screech. So I looked up and over, and as soon as I made eye contact, it stopped. And it was this beautiful red cardinal, and it was, I remember the contrast of like the red bird and the green leaves, and it was in a pink dogwood tree. So there's all these beautiful pink flowers all around it. And it flew directly past me into my yard to my bird feeder. And it did eat a little bit, but most of the time it was just sitting there staring. And this happened, this was going on for at least 15 minutes. So I smiled to myself because I knew that was my sign. And if I was rushing, if I stayed in my head, I most likely would have missed it. So remember earlier when I was saying that most signs are very subtle. This is why slowing down matters. Signs don't always seem very dramatic. They're not always obvious. Sometimes they're a sudden memory that makes you smile. It's a stranger that looks like them or has a very similar mannerisms as they did. It's their favorite song coming on out of nowhere. It's a coin with their birth year on it. It's a scent. It's a dream visitation. There's so many ways that they can get your attention, that they can send you signs, okay? So it's very important to be very open and present during these times. To me and a lot of people in the spiritual community, we say that there are no coincidences. And I always believe that our own intuition is what leads us to the right place at the right time, because these are moments meant for you to notice. Spirit often speaks through your own inner voice too. So suddenly that thought to change the radio station when the one playing their favorite song comes on when you change the station. And like, that nudge didn't come out of nowhere. Have you ever had a moment like that? And if so, share it below or just take a breath and notice, who do you feel right now? Who do you feel close to? Who's on your mind right now? Who's on the other side? And I want you to go ahead and I want you just to send them love. Just say, I love you. I miss you. And I know you're here with me. Now, I want to move on to some of the most common questions that I'm asked as a medium because I feel like within this grief video, I feel like it's important to talk about these aspects because it's very common. One of the most common questions that I get are they okay on the other side? It's important for me to let you know that we are not our physical bodies. So when we pass over, we do not take the pain, we do not take the illness, we don't take the trauma or the limitations with us. We return to consciousness, we return to clarity, peace, and unconditional love. There was this one time I had a client, she wanted a reading done, and I gave her this reading, and it was more of like an intuitive reading at the beginning. But before we ended our call together, she asked me, she was like, you're a medium, right? And I said, yeah, I'm a medium. And she said, well, would you mind connecting with my best friend who passed a couple months ago? And I said, yeah, I can try to connect with her. So I said, give me her name. She gave me just her first name, and I connected and I started bringing through information for her. And one of the biggest pieces, which was not really big for me, but it meant a lot to this woman, is that I said that, okay, like she's in this chair, but I see her like getting up and like she's like, moving her body, she's dancing. And that's when she told me, she's like, oh my gosh, she was like, that makes me feel so good because she was in a car accident and she was paralyzed. So she was always upset about that, after that happened because she couldn't do as much as what she wanted to in life. And, she was really upset about that. So it was Spirit's way of saying, like, hey, I did not cross over with my limitation, that I'm free, that I can, do stuff. And she was very lively. And it was beautiful. So, moral of the story is that limitation did not cross over with her. Another common question that I get in readings are they still mad at me? Are they still upset with, how things happened? And perhaps, things were left on a bad note and there were some raw feelings there. And maybe you have a lot of regret that you're carrying or, just lack of closure. And the truth is that like, those emotions attached to our human experience aren't typically transferred over either. However, there have been readings that I have where a spirit came with an apology. They wanted to say sorry about, how things ended or, like something that was very significant to the person that I was giving the reading to. And this is for not just that spirit's healing, but it's also for your own healing so you can move forward more positively. Now, I want to be clear here because I think this is also important. Now, I'm a science girly too. I like the facts. I like the logistics of things. Spirituality might seem a little woo woo because there's a lot of stuff that has not been proven. Um, but to me, it's more of us experiencing these things for it to be real to us. But science sometimes does complement things because science has not proven what happens to consciousness after death, but science also has not proven or explained consciousness itself. Researchers openly acknowledge that consciousness is one of the greatest mysteries of existence. And there have been studies on near death experiences that there's brain activity at death, like gamma brain waves, which these are the brain waves that you experience when you are in very intense focus in a deep meditative state or you have very heightened awareness. And consciousness research suggests something very important here is that consciousness may not be produced by the brain, that the brain may be a receiver. This is another thing that we learned, or that I at least learned in my mediumship studies, is that when we are connecting to the other side, when we're receiving information, we're literally just receiving. We're not producing it. It's not coming from us, it's coming to us. And it's important because energy and information do not disappear, they transform. And this is not a spiritual woo woo theory. This is legitimately been studied and documented by physicists. And for that, I actually put some case studies down below in the description of the video if you want to go ahead and read up on a couple of things because it's really cool. So while science can't yet exactly tell us what happens, the evidence points towards consciousness being far more expansive and enduring than we once believed. And, maybe that's the point. So I want to ask you this. If science can't explain consciousness, does that mean what we feel and what we experience isn't real? Or does that open the door to something much bigger? Something that we can't yet measure, but many of us have felt. That's why I think there's such a beautiful integration that can be made between science and spirituality and actually experiencing these spiritual phenomenon and intertwining it with science to fill in the gaps. Across cultures and belief systems, people who have experienced near death events consistently report very similar experiences of this out of body awareness or encounters with their deceased loved ones, or this overwhelming sense of peace rather than fear, or even the sense of, like, when they went through this, the near death experience, when they were like clinically dead, that when they had that outer body experience they didn't feel any pain. There was no fear there was no, like, you're not scared or anything. It's just unconditional love and peace. And what is striking is that many of these experiences occurred when there was periods of very minimal or absent measurable brain activity, and this is in a state that dreaming or hallucinations are not expected to occur. And while science cannot yet explain how these experiences happen, their consistency and timing continue to raise very serious questions about the nature of consciousness. And so far, I just want to do a quick little summary here before we move in to honoring your loved ones and how you can do that. So far, we have walked through grief, we've explored the science behind consciousness, and we uncovered how our loved ones might be reaching out. So, next, I want to go ahead and talk about how you can honor your loved ones in your own life, even if you haven't even gotten a sign yet, because you have to really trust and believe that they are here with you still. You don't need proof to honor love. You don't need permission to keep loving someone who is no longer here in the physical. Some ways that I honor my loved ones is eating their favorite food or lighting a candle, in memory of them, visiting a place that they love. This has happened many times where I actually received signs, like I just had this intuitive nudge to, like, oh, I want to go to the lake today. And then, it's just a very serene moment. And there's a lot of signs that I received through nature, that's like pretty specific to, my loved one on the other side. So nature's another big one that spirit can give you signs. but also going back to ways that you can honor them. Tattoos, even. I have a tattoo on, up here by my shoulder on my upper arm, just in honor of my loved one. You can also plant a flower, you can plant a tree, a bush, or something in their memory. But the truth is that grief does not really end, but it evolves. And as author Nora McLerney says, and I may have pronounced her last name wrong, I'm sorry, but she says that we do not move on from grief. We move forward with grief. And if you search her name and TED Talk about the subject of grief, it was a really good, decently short speech about grief and moving forward with it, and it was great. So if you are really going through the waves emotions of grief, go ahead and check that video out. I'll link it below in the description as well. But grief hurts deeply. All right, there's even being a medium, there's no way to get around it, okay? Like if I had, one of my close ones pass away suddenly, like tomorrow, it will still hurt, even though I know that, energy still continues, that they are still going to be sending me signs that physical death is what gets you. And grief does not mean that love is gone. And if love doesn't disappear, then maybe consciousness doesn't disappear either. And maybe what we're feeling isn't loss, but it's the echo of a connection that hasn't ended, but one that just changed forms. So let me go ahead and leave you with this. What would it mean for you if your love, your energy, consciousness never truly ends? How would your life change if you believe that people you love are still with you, whispering in those quiet moments and showing up in ways that you might not expect? And if this episode resonated with you, I invite you to subscribe and join my community here. We share stories, we explore the metaphysical side of being human, and connect through our experiences. And next time, I'm going to be answering some of the most common questions that my viewers send me. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss it.